everybody. We really appreciate you being here today. This is the Grad School or Not to Grad School panel. As you can see, we have a couple panelists here to join us today. They're really excited to share their experiences with you and really excited to answer any of your questions. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. So with us today, we have Katherine, we have Jose, and we have Jessica. So I'll go ahead and get started with Katherine first, a little brief introduction about her. So Katherine currently is the Senior Compliance Specialist at Capital Group. So she attended UC Irvine for her undergrad, where she got her Bachelor's of Arts in Sociology. And then afterwards, she attended Western State College of Law, where she received her Juris Doctorate. So thank you, Katherine, for being here with us. Next, we have Jessica Naves. So Jessica is actually from Los Angeles, and she is currently a first-year full-time MBA student at UCLA Anderson. So prior to going into business school, she worked in the marketing and advertising field, and she's decided to pivot into the entertainment industry. She also got her undergraduate degree in sociology and attended UCLA. Welcome, Jessica. And then last but not least, we have Jose Luqion. Currently, Jose is a research hardware engineer at IBM. He's also from Los Angeles. He graduated from Stanford University in 2020 with a Bachelor's of Science in Electrical Engineering. Right after his bachelor's, he did get accepted into a master's program in electrical engineering, but decided ultimately to pursue a awesome career opportunity instead. So he's located in the Bay Area right now, and he's working on hardware to accelerate AI algorithms. So welcome, Jose. Yeah, so we have a lot of really great knowledge in the room. Some people who have graduated from grad school, currently in grad school, and some have decided not to attend grad school. So we have a really full range of experiences. So again, please feel free to ask questions. But yeah, if you guys want to get started with just a little bit about your career journey and how you got started. Let me see, Katherine, do you want to go ahead and go first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm actually a Fulfillment Fund scholarship recipient. So I too received a scholarship back then. I think it was at $25,000, but it was a special private donor. And I know now it's $15,000. So I was based out in LA, and I grew up from a single parent, went to school at an inner city high school, Bellman High School. And I went to undergrads at UC Irvine. I worked for a few years at Deutsche Bank in downtown LA. Then I decided that I want to go to grad school. So it was a choice between business school or law school. And for me, I just felt that law school was a little bit more specific. And my dad was a lawyer in Vietnam many years ago. And it just seems like the right path to go. So I went to law school. And I'm going to tell you some of the highs and lows of after grad school, because grad school is a lot of money, a lot of time commitment and workload. So when I was in law school, one out of 3 students passed the first year. So there was a lot of first year that didn't return the second or third year. And that's a way for the law school to kind of filter and screen out students. Then you take the bar exam, which is another commitment. And then at the bar exam, there's only 30% that pass. So obviously 70% of the students that graduate from law school who paid the tuition did not pass the bar exam and cannot work as an attorney. So going back to me, I took the bar when it was 3 days. It has reduced to 2 days now. So it's a little bit easier because it's not so much a marathon. So let me tell you that when I took it 3 times and I didn't pass, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do if I don't pass the bar? And I have this school loan, and my school loan was only for grad school. So then what you do is, aside from feeling like a failure or rejection, you have to go to look for jobs that are Juris Doctorate required, meaning you graduate from law school, but you're not a lawyer, but you still make a lot of money. Otherwise, you will have this law school loan, you didn't pass the bar, you're not a lawyer, and you're not making a lot of money. So there are careers if you don't pass the bar and you can still get a well-paying job. So I now work for Capital Group as a senior compliance specialist. there's so many specialists, and you see the salary range. So obviously I make enough to pay for my law school loans and all that. And it made it worthwhile, because I have friends who've passed the bar and are lawyers and still looking for jobs. So there's no guarantees in passing the bar. There's no guarantee of getting a great job, but just know that, you have the ability to find a good job. So don't feel, like a failure if you graduate from law school, didn't pass the bar, and is stuck with a big, law school loan. And my company, Capital Group, just donated $54,000 to the Fulfillment Fund, because myself and two other associates are on the advisory committee at the Fulfillment Fund Scholar Bridge, and Capital Group donates $18,000 per associate who's on the committee. And so we donate a total of $54,000. So that's where we are. And I'm glad to be here and to give back. So I will let the next person speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Katherine. That was a great intro. Yeah, you had a lot of really great points talking about funding for grad school, how you make those decisions. Yeah, a lot of things that we'll go into more detail on. Jessica, do you want to go ahead and give us a brief intro?
Yeah, so hi everyone. So I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. I went to Gertz-Ruster High School, for anybody who went to Gertz. I graduated 2012. Then I went to UCLA for my undergrad, studied sociology. I always wanted to be in entertainment. My first job out of college was marketing assistant at Lionsgate. Then I really fell in love with marketing. I wanted to learn a little bit more about marketing. I went to go work at a marketing and advertising agency. I did that for I was there for 3 years. And it was great. I was able to develop marketing strategies. I was able to be like the lead contact for like my clients. Great experience, but I've always had that passion for entertainment. So I was like, I need to pivot and go. And the way for me to do it was to go to grad school, and it was to go to business school. I did my research, which is something that I highly recommend. I think Katherine touched on it, like grad school is an investment in your time and money. So I definitely recommend everyone doing their own research, because it might not be for you, but it might be. For me, it was. I'm very happy that I made this decision. So I'm having a great time at Anderson. And yeah, I guess that's my intro. And then I guess I can speak on like funding and all that stuff when you ask, Olivia.
Thank you, Jessica. I see in the chat, LA Pride. Yes, everybody from LA, right? Love that. You touched on a lot of other good things like passion, right? How you kind of decided that it was for you and making that really important decision, right? Because it is a big next step. So thank you, Jessica. And then Jose, would you like to give us a little introduction of who you are, what you're doing?
Sure. So hey, everyone. I echo the LA Pride. I'm also originally from LA, and now in the Bay Area, but I will forever rep LA. Originally from LA, I went to New Design Charter School and then ultimately graduated from Gertz, just like Jessica. And after I went to undergrad at Stanford, studied electrical engineering, and pretty much my senior year, when you're kind of applying for full-time jobs and all that, I didn't quite know exactly if I wanted to go to grad school or kind of work. And so I applied to both at the same time and was like, let me not limit the options. And so I did both, and ultimately, and I can get into it if anyone particularly cares about all those details, ultimately decided to go into, or to kind of pursue this career opportunity where I've been for the past 2 years now, at IBM. And so, yeah, I think that's about me.
Thank you, Jose. Yeah, you touched on other good things as well, right? Like, again, what is it that you want to do? Is it going to work out for you? Making those big decisions too. So thank you for that. So I think one of the first questions I think everybody is curious about is, what ultimately made you decide to go to grad school, right? Was there one particular moment where it was like, yes, this is my aha moment, I know this is what I want to do? Or was it just like a little bit more of a journey? Was there a lot of trial and error for you? So how did you come to that, this big decision? I see Jessica has a lot of reactions. You want to go ahead and tackle that question first?
It's a journey. No, it's funny. I always wanted to go to business school. As weird as that sound, I always wanted to go to business school, but I didn't know why. It was just something that stuck to me. But ultimately, I specifically want to do product marketing for a streaming service. And I did research I looked up on LinkedIn, I reached out to people who are doing product marketing at Disney Plus, and a lot of them had MBAs. A lot of them had certain skill sets that I didn't necessarily have. So then I went to a lot of events at different business schools to kind of learn more about the program, speak to current students, and it just made sense. It made sense that I had the marketing background, but there's a gap in skills that I need in order to transition to the role that I ultimately want. And business school was going to fulfill that gap. Luckily, I did a lot of programs that assisted me in the application process, which anyone who is interested in business school here, I highly recommend these programs for you. One of them was Management Leadership for Tomorrow. And they're all about increasing representation in business schools within Latinos, Black, and Native American. I call it kind of like a fulfillment fund, but for business school. I had a one-on-one coach. They helped me with the application process. It was like a year-long program. And they helped me apply. So that was very great. And through them, I also applied via the consortium, which again, if you're interested, reach out. I can go more into detail. But the consortium, again, it's an organization that's all about getting more representation in business school. And if you apply through the consortium, you have the opportunity to get a full ride to business school. And I was able to get the full ride to business school. So I am at UCLA Anderson. They're paying for everything. So it is possible. Graduate school is very expensive, but there are a lot of resources and organizations out there specifically for people of color, for underrepresented communities. And I'm more than happy to talk one-on-one, talk about all that, because I definitely want more students to take advantage of it and come to business school if that's where your passion lies.
No, thank you, Jessica. I think you're muted, Katherine.
I was thinking, I think I'm next. Well, for me, my dad was a lawyer back in Vietnam before the Vietnam War. So it was kind of like my mom always encouraged me to take that route. And for me, law school just taught me some of the intangibles, which is to be able to write critically, to be able to think critically, and also be able to speak in front of people and feel comfortable about that. And now it really applies to what I do, because on a daily basis, I review contracts and I review all the legal terms and conditions. Without going to law school, I don't think I'll be able to read it. I mean, you can have a college education, be able to read, but you may not be able to read all the legalese because it's a little tricky, a little complicated. So that's how I feel the law school really helped me with my current job. And it's always something, I think I watched a lot of LA Law growing up. So, so Law and Order, and I was always intrigued. So I liked it. It was more for me. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you, Katherine. I appreciate that. And I think for both you and Jessica, it sounds like research was really key. Like, what was that process going to be like, and what were the outcomes going to be, and ultimately what you wanted to do? So I think that's really important for students to take away, right? Like really investing that time and looking at the programs and the details that are really important. And then Jose, would you like to go ahead and tackle that question and how you came to that decision to ultimately pursue your career?
Yeah, so like I said, I was applying to both at the same time. And so part of it was just the timeline of it. I got an offer, a full-time offer, maybe about a month or two before I knew that I was going to hear back from grad school. And honestly, when I saw the offer and I saw the salary, I was like, it's a good number. It's a good number. I can be comfortable with that number. And that to some degree, I guess, like, taking my background, and maybe others can relate, it's like when you see that number, to some degree, it's like, oh, I've reached my goal, right? And it kind of sounds weird to say that was the goal, because there are obviously more than one reason to like go to school and kind of like go through all that, right? But one of them is for kind of that financial support and financial platform that you can build for yourself. And so when I saw that number, I was like, oh, that's a good number. And then the second part to that was, I feel like I kind of lucked out in that the position that they ended up offering me was very much in line with what I was studying in undergrad and with what I would have kind of continued to pursue in grad school. So I applied and got into a master's in electrical engineering. And this job pretty much was like, you'll be doing this. And I was like, that's exactly what I would be studying anyways. And so I was like, I could kind of do something. And they were also very transparent about like, we're willing to kind of teach you on the job. And we know you're kind of like starting off from undergrad, so we're willing to kind of hold your hand a little bit. And so it kind of seemed like the position where I was like, okay, I could do a lot of the learning that I would do in grad school on the job while getting paid to do it. And because I didn't know if I would ultimately get into grad school 2 months later, it kind of felt like an opportunity I didn't want to let pass by. And so I was like, you know what? I said yes. And for grad school, at that time, I essentially deferred. And it was until maybe a couple months ago that I officially withdrew from the program and said, I'm not going to go back, at least not within the 2-year time frame that you guys have as your max. So up until recently, I was kind of still in the program, but now I officially withdrew for that same reason of the opportunities that I keep getting provided by this team, and kind of it's a well-known company for tech and for my field, and so I feel like it's really gonna be important for me to build this space, and then if I do want a career switch later, it'll kind of really set me up for that.
So thank you, Jose. Yeah, that was a lot of really good information. I think you guys all touched on, the same thing, on doing that research on what is your ultimate career goal and what do you really need to be successful or to get to that place, right? You said some careers maybe you don't need grad school, and you found one that they're willing to teach you and put that time and effort into making sure that you would stay with that company, right? But then other fields, like you do need a grad degree. So it's really important that you do that research and you ask those questions. And it sounds like all of you did that. You asked people who were in the field, had some knowledge or some connection to people who were there, and were able to really pick their brains about like what is possible and what isn't possible. So I think for students, that's really important. You kind of have to go to the source, right? Who's already in that field, who's in that position. I do have some questions in the chat, and a lot of them are following the same thing of how did you prepare yourself to pursue that grad process, or did you feel prepared in your undergrad to pursue that grad process?
I can take that one. I highly recommend with business school to have work experience. And the reason being is because when you're in the classroom, a lot of the examples that the professor is going to do, a lot of the business case studies that we're going to do in class and we have to, discuss, you bring that work experience that you had into the classroom, and it just makes the learning more enriching. There are people in my class that are a little bit more on the younger side, and it's great that we have their perspective, but you can tell that there's that gap, that they can't bring too much of that work experience. And personally for me, I've been in classes where I'm like, oh, I've dealt with that in my teams in my previous job. So it just makes the learning better. So in my case, I would say yes. Working, I worked 6 years before coming to business school. That's kind of like the average in my program, but of course you can work 4, you can work 2, but my recommendation is for sure, go work, go experience a little bit. And then I think it would make the program and your time more fulfilling.
I'm going to agree and piggyback on Jessica's comments. I agree with her that right after graduating from college, you should work a couple of years to see what it's like out there, some of the challenges, some of the opportunities, and find out whether a grad school would help you in your journey, in your career. Because, well, if you work at a company, sometimes they would pay for your grad school education as well. So that can happen. So then you don't have to worry about that. But if they don't, then you can find out, is it worth your investment? And then you will bring your work experience. I actually have a senior VP at Capital Group who is going to MIT's business school right now. And she's around my age, so she's not young, and she's had a lot of work experience, at least 10 years or so. But even at this point where she's making a lot of money, she still wants to get a business degree, and Capital Group is paying for it, I believe. So there are, different options of getting your grad school and having it paid for. There's a lot of resources, but definitely, work a couple of years just to experience what it's like and see if grad school's for you.
I think I would echo very much a lot of what they both said, but to just kind of be that other voice of dissent. I didn't exactly know what I want to do, and I still kind of don't know exactly what my angle is with my career. And so I did touch upon like this career felt being like a good base because they wanted to introduce me to a lot of different things. That was cool. But before I had this kind of like offer, I was like, what do I want to do? Maybe grad school will help me figure that out a little bit more, slash it'll, and it's a weird way to put it, but it'll also kind of be like a buffer between when I have to like kind of go out into the real world, and it'll kind of give me a little bit more of like, okay, a little bit more exploration time with like, maybe I can take this class, maybe I can take this class. And so I think to some degree, grad school can also offer that little bit of exploration. And I say that with the understanding that I was a Gates scholar, so I was going to have a portion of my grad school paid for. Not everyone can afford the luxury of like exploring while they're in grad school. I knew that to some degree I could, because financially it wasn't going to be as big of a burden, because I had the Gates scholarship. So take that with a grain of salt, right? That exploration part. But I do think I was entertaining grad school partly because I didn't know what I wanted to do in my career. So I was like, maybe grad school can help me figure that out a little bit.
It's just one more. I just feel there are certain, I think, careers that it's like a yes, grad school is automatic. If you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a nurse, go to med school, go to nursing school. So I think there are certain careers where it's like you don't necessarily need to get the work experience. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point to make, right? Like there's some careers where you're going to have to go to grad school no matter what. Like if you want to be a lawyer, you have to go to grad school, right? And there's some where, like Jose said, you can learn on the job. People are willing to teach you. And I think a really important point to make too is when you're looking at grad schools is the program going to work for you and your life goals, right? Or your lifestyle. There's a lot of questions about, did you work and go to grad school? How was the financial piece, right? So that's also a big part of making that big decision. Can you all talk a little bit about maybe the funding piece of grad school? I know Jose, you touched on it briefly, like, that was a consideration for you, but Katherine and Jessica?
For me, because I got the full ride for undergrads, it was mainly just the grad school that I had to be concerned with. And I actually worked full time during the day, and I went to law school in the evening. So instead of doing the 3 years full time, I did 4 years part time. And so with the 4 years part-time, you meet a lot of older students because they're working in the daytime. It was a little bit about time management, because on the weekends, you're briefing your cases instead of going out, watching a movie or having fun, right? You basically have no life because you're working in the daytime, going to classes in the nighttime, briefing your cases on the weekend. So I did do that, but for me, I enjoy that because there are some students who are just full-time law school students and they're just so focused, so concentrated. I need to switch it up. I can't be like, into law school. It drives me crazy, a little too intense. So for me, the work was kind of like, I do something else. And then I go to law school, go to class and brief my cases. So I like that. So that helped pay for my law school.
So I was very similar to Jose. I got the Gates Millennium Scholarship as well. So very fortunate that my undergrad was also paid for. I worked for 6 years while I was thinking about business school. There's different types of programs. So there's the fully employed, which is kind of what Katherine did in law school, which is you're working and you're doing business school, which is either Thursdays in the evenings or you do like a full day on Saturday. And then there's what I'm doing, which is the full-time program, which is you quit your job and you go to grad school for 2 years full-time. And definitely that was not like a easy decision to make. I have been working for a very long time, and obviously income is very important. But because I wanted to pivot, I guess what I was doing, full-time just made more sense because I would be kind of recruiting, because part of the program, recruiting is a big part of it, where like the business school helps you connect with all these companies and helps you get a job. So that's why I also chose full-time. And also, since I got the consortium fellowship, which paid for my grad school, it was also just, it was an easier decision for me to not work. But again, that's a situation that I was very fortunate in, and that might not be the case for everyone. So, you know, fully employed might be the route for you, and also happy to speak on that if anyone wants to do that.
Yeah, and then I touched on the fact that I had Gates that covered a part of grad school. So I did kind of look a little bit into the finances of grad school before I was when I was figuring out what I wanted to do. And I had some friends who were also kind of doing it at the same time and who did end up doing it. Very similar financial place. So I kind of see myself having had or would have taken the same road. And for me, what it kind of would have looked like was Gates Scholarship covers a part. I would have also been a TA, which means pretty much for an undergrad class, I was one of like would have been a teaching assistant. And I know, at least for my grad program, when you're a TA, they pay for like either 25, 50%, or 100% of your tuition, just depending on the TA ship that you get. And what that means is you kind of reach out to a professor and say, hey, I would like to be a teaching assistant. And then that gets figured out. They say, yes, cool, for that semester or quarter or year, you're kind of earning your tuition by being a teaching assistant. And then I know within the School of Engineering, at least for my program, there were a couple of different kind of scholarships, like Jessica talked about, for like minority students, or students who are coming from kind of a fully funded undergrad, and so into grad school. So it would have, for me, if I did do grad school, it would have kind of been chunked up in a couple of different ways financially.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing all those experiences. And I hope students can come away with the understanding that there are different funding options for grad school, right? Whether or not that's scholarships, whether that's partially working, or whatever the case may be, right? There is a way to help pay for grad school. I know the common narrative is just loans, right? Like large amounts of loans. And while that is still very true for a lot of people, and that can be true for a lot of programs, right? There are ways to kind of chip away at the costs. So it is something that I want people to take away from, because I know sometimes that can just be the biggest barrier, is thinking that there's no way I'm going to be able to afford this, even though this is something I really want to do. But I'm glad that you all shared your experiences so they can see there are different ways and different avenues to pursue those grad degrees. So thank you. Another big comment that we're getting in here is, what did you feel was maybe the biggest difference or biggest struggle between undergrad and grad, or choosing to pursue grad school, right? Two very different systems, very different goals. So what would you say were some of the biggest challenges when making that decision?
Sorry, I'm like on my phone, so it's hard. Interestingly enough, undergrad was harder, but I think it was just because I was younger. There's I had the word imposter syndrome. I think undergrad was very hard. You're still trying to figure yourself out. And I think that's why I always encourage, like, go work, go find out what you're passionate about, find out who you are before you go into business school, because I came in with just such a different just mentality and perspective. Like, so, you know, like I'm like speaking up in class. I'm like leading. I never did that in undergrad. So I would say undergrad, I think it was harder in that sense. Application process, the business school application, it's pretty rough. You have to take the GRE or the GMAT. It's a lot of networking. Like, you have to be talking to admission officers. You have to be talking to current students. So again, anybody interested, happy to talk and go in depth in that application process. But yeah, it was definitely hard. And I think, like many of us here, first generation, no one in my family has gone to business school. So that's why for me, it was very important to join these programs to help me with that process. So to echo Olivia, like, don't ever let maybe like money or I don't know how to do something stop you, because there's so many resources out there. Unfortunately, we're not always aware of them, but thankfully to all of you here, you know, the Fulfill Fund. The Fulfill Fund can connect you to someone that can help you.
I'm going to disagree with Jessica, and I'm going to say that law school was very hard. It was very intense. It was like boot camp compared to undergrads, only because in law school, there's no ABC grades. It's pass or fail. So, you know, again, only one student out of 3 makes it to the next class, the next level. So it was much more competitive. and much more intense. But you know, I think that's the whole point of law school, was to see how you perform under pressure, and to really let you know what the work world is like. And you know, on my day-to-day job, I'm on Zoom calls like this, and I'm on calls with attorneys or their lead contract person, and it can get confrontational. It can get kind of high rate, but you have to find a way to work through those differences, those conflicts, and find a solution. So it's a lot of stress and pressure, but it's doable. So I think law school, grad school was intense for me, like boot camp, but I also thrive under pressure. So I enjoyed it. It's not for everybody, because some people break under pressure, right? But I think at the end of the day, stay calm and stay logical, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I think those are two really great points of view. Sometimes it's going to be, I mean, everyone has their own journey through grad school, right? And everyone's in different places in their lives in grad school, different situations. So I think that never goes away, just like undergrad, where you're encountering all kinds of people that are trying to pursue a similar career. So I think keep that in mind too. I think there is, again, that one narrative of like grad school, what it should be or what it should look like, but it's very, very different, right? So again, don't feel like if you're not matching all these like milestones or checking all these boxes right now, that you know, it's off the table for you, right? So hopefully everybody's different experiences can kind of highlight that you know, there's never a wrong time if you want to like change your career or, you know, choose to go to grad school. So kind of like where there's a will, there's a way. If you really want to do it, then you'll find a way to kind of do it. All right, so we do have a couple other questions in the chat. Let's see. Was there ever a time that you guys ever questioned or regretted the decision that you were making, whether that was going to grad school or not going to grad school? Jose, do you want to go ahead and start with that one?
I don't know if I regretted it. So I guess now that I'm thinking about it, no, I don't regret it. So because partly for my journey, I had 2 years of deferment essentially. And throughout those 2 years, I was constantly asking myself, am I going to go back? Am I going to go back? Because I had to fill out the form to defer twice, right? At the end of each academic year that I deferred. And so after the first year, I was like, am I going to go back? Am I going to go back? And so I did ask myself that plenty of times, but it was never, and so I guess to some degree, now that I deferred for long enough, Gates is no longer going to be an option if I do ever choose to go back to grad school. And so I had to think about that. I had to think about, if I do down the road want to go back to grad school, I no longer have that. Am I wasting that? Is it kind of like a different kind of opportunity that I'm letting pass by? I'm gonna have to pay for it later, maybe. And so while I don't regret not going back to grad school for now, at least because who knows what I might do later. But while I don't regret it for now, yeah, I'm still like, it's something that I keep in the back of my mind. It's like, oh, can it still fit in my career? Is it necessary for my career? So it's not like I'm saying I'm never going to go back. But no, I don't regret it. I think I'm thriving at work in terms of like the kinds of opportunities that I am being offered. Got raises and promotions and stuff like that. That always feels great. So it kind of, again, when you see the numbers, sometimes it's like a, do I want to give that up? It feels nice. I don't regret saying yes to the numbers. And so, yeah.
Thank you, Jose. Yeah, that's very helpful, right? Like I think it's an important question. And I think a lot of our students are worried about making the wrong decision. So they're, you know, they want to know what was that process like? So thank you.
This is Katherine. Now I want to see Jose's number to know why why it was so satisfying. Just kidding. For me, right after law school and grad school, yeah, there were times when I think, oh my God, I made such a time commitment, money investment. Was it worth it? And when you're looking for a job, you're thinking it wasn't worth it, because all I think about is the numbers, the money, how much money I spent on it. But when you find the right job, and sometimes it's a journey, you have to go through a couple companies until you find the right fit for you. And once you find the right fit, that's where you're going to stay forever. And you're going to invest in them, they invest in you, and you're going to retire. That's when you know you made the best investment in yourself for grad school. So I like Jose, he doesn't need to go grad school because he's satisfied with the number they gave him. And for me, at my age, at where I'm in my career, even if somebody told me, they'll pay for my MBA at MIT or something, I have no interest because I just don't have that time commitment anymore. So it varies. I think there was a question in the chat, is it ever too old to go to grad school? No, because when I was in law school the evening, I knew people who had second careers. So they were like a travel agent for 10 years and suddenly they want to go to law school. So they went to law school and they are older in life and they appear to be like experienced in senior attorneys when they graduate, but really they haven't had that many years of actually law experience, right? It's just their second career. So I don't think it's ever too late to go grad school. It's just a question of when you want to go, that's all, and if you want to go. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think something that's really important to know is that a career path for someone is it's very different for everyone. It's not even linear. I think there's a lot of pressure where it's like, you should have it all figured out, know what you want to do. Trust me, it's not easy. And for a lot of people change careers. A lot of people decide to go to grad school. So definitely keep that in mind because I know there's a lot of pressure on that. I do not regret going to grad school. Have not had that feeling. I'm having a great time. So I do not regret it at all. And yeah, like I just got part of business school, you have to do a summer internship. So I actually got a product marketing offer at Microsoft. And I'll echo Jose. I saw that number and I was like, wow, I was not making that before business school. So yeah, business school can help you if that's what you want to do. But I guess you could also be like Jose. It depends. You can get that offer before business school.
Thank you. Oh, that was really helpful. But I'm going to see a lot of the questions in the chat. They're like, what if the number was lower? But again, it's really dependent on you, your goals, and your lifestyle, right? Maybe for some people that number is awesome, and for some people it's not, right? So again, what are your own goals? What are your own career expectations for yourself too? So it's all those things that you have to take into account, and part of the adulting process too, like really deciding what you want to do for you, and if you have families, right, too, deciding what's best for your family. So all those factors that have to be taken into account.
Just on that note, Olivia, I have friends who graduated law school, passed the bar, were successful attorneys, and they decide to retire at a young age to be full-time moms. You're like, oh my gosh, but then they feel really happy about that decision and they feel very satisfied. And that is a $0 amount, right? You don't get paid. You don't see the check at the end of 2 weeks or a month. So it just depends on each person and what their life goals are.
Yeah, that's the biggest piece, right? Is it going to make you happy? Is it your definition of success, right? Whatever that's going to be for you, and if it fits into that. Yeah. We do have like one more question that I do want to ask. We're running out of time, unfortunately. But what would you just say is your biggest piece of advice for our undergrads right now? If they're searching, questioning, trying to make this decision, what would be your biggest piece of advice in this process for them?
I'll start and I'll try to make it brief. Ask as many questions as you can, meet as many people as you can. Like Jessica say, network, socialize. The Fulfillment Fund is very resourceful. Ask them if they don't know something. I'm pretty sure they will point you to someone who can help you. And for me, many, many years ago, the Fulfillment Fund, even in the early stages, was extremely helpful. And I'm so extremely grateful. And that's why I wanted to give back in many ways. And, the funding was just one way. So just stay with the Fulfillment Fund. Don't give up. Because when I was one of 5 students who was a Fulfillment Fund, and I think I was the only one who stuck around. Everybody somehow, had different life choices and events. So try to stay with the Fulfillment Fund. They will guide you, ask a lot of questions, and network as much as you can.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, Katherine said it all. I think don't be afraid to ask questions. Network. I cannot emphasize that. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, get a LinkedIn profile. Add all of us here, and then add more people. don't be afraid to reach out. I like send emails to people on LinkedIn and I don't even know them. Sometimes they don't respond, sometimes they do, but I just want to learn more about their career. And I was gonna say one more thing. Oh, internships. If you're in like college, I highly recommend internships. It's a great way for you to kind of get exposed to different careers, kind of start to figure out if this is something that you like. I did internships in my undergrad, so I highly recommend that. And apply for scholarships. That's another one.
Damn, this is a hard question. I think definitely echoing, ask questions, ask everyone like around you. I know I talked to a couple of different counselors at the Fulfillment Fund, and sometimes it was just like me venting. And then at the end of that vent, I'd be like, oh, I kind of feel like I know a little bit better what I want now. And the counselor was like, cool, glad I could help by just sitting here. And so like, just like talk it through with people, ask questions to people who chose to do it, chose not to do it, because I think both things are very valid. And I think at the end of the day, kind of one thing I was reminded when I was kind of like, should I go work or should I go to grad school, was like, they're both good options and they're both very much going to offer a lot of experience, a lot of like value. And so don't think of it as like, I'm going to make a wrong decision. Like you're not going to make a wrong decision per se. It's not like you're going to choose something and the world's going to end tomorrow for you because it was the wrong one. It's about kind of like just feeling confident. And you know what, I think even if it's like, I think this is what I want to do, I'm not quite sure why, maybe it's a gut feeling, I've done my research and I still can't like land on an answer, like go for it and like do it confidently. And like really kind of like, once you do kind of decide, really just commit to it, really commit. And once you're in that position, just kind of like go all out and make the best use of it, right? Because not to say that there is like no way of turning back, right? But like there's value either way that you go. And so I would definitely wouldn't think of it as like, I'm going to make a wrong decision. I don't think either one of those is going to be a wrong decision.
Thank you so much to our panelists. I really appreciate your time. We have a lot of questions about sharing your emails. If you feel comfortable, if you don't mind putting your emails in the chat, a lot of really great questions. So thank you students too for really being active in the chat. We do have a couple names in mind for scholarships. We'll be following up with you. So just make sure that you're checking your emails, right? And that your names match. And then at the end of this session, again, make sure that you do the survey. So there's another opportunity to get more, incentives and prizes. But Katherine, Jessica, and Jose, thank you so much. It was really great to have this conversation with you. I got a lot out of it. I'm sure the students did as well. So tons of appreciation. Thank you so much.